Good morning, everybody. Okay. Well, today my presentation will cover those 5 points on the screen. Number 1, teaching aims. Number 2, teaching focus and difficulties. Number 3, teaching method. Number 4, teaching aids. And number 5, teaching procedure. Okay, let's say them one by one. The first one, teaching aims for this lesson is to get a student to get the main idea of this passage and also the underlying meaning as well. And secondly, to get a student to know some of the language points, let's say the words and expressions. And finally, that is some of the creative work in this lesson, that is to guide a student to know the globalization on them. Okay, this is for teaching aims. And for teaching focus and difficulties for this lesson, of course, is how to guide a student to know globalization on them. And also, some of the understanding points in this text, because this text is a little bit difficult. And the third point for teaching method, of course, TBLT will be adopted in this lesson. That is teaching English use task-based learning, okay, method. And the fourth one is teaching aids. Of course, I'm going to use multimedia computer system. And the fifth one is teaching procedure. Let's say I'm going to divide this passage, this kind of teaching plan, into 3 stages, okay? Number 1 is pre-reading, okay? And of course, the second will be wide reading, and third, post-reading. For pre-reading activity, the purpose of doing this activity is to arouse students' interest and also to warm them up, okay? And I will going to cite myself as example. The other day, I got a pair of shoes from my uncle from New York. Well, guess what? This is a Nike brand, but it's written then it is made in China. So I guess it is one kind of globalization. So I like to cite this example to warm my students up and then ask them to have group work to discuss globalization on you. Okay, so this is my warming up activity. And for the second, while reading activity, the first one, of course, is to guide the student to do skimming and scanning work. The purpose of doing this activity is to lead the student to know the skill of reading and also to guide them to read the text in a very quick time to grasp the main idea of the text. Okay, and secondly will be structure analysis. Okay, for this text, I would divide the text into 3 parts. Paragraph 1 to 3 will be part 1. Paragraph 4 to 9 will be part 2. The remaining paragraph 10 and 11 will be the last part. And I will take a table on the screen, okay, to guide the student to put on each of the parts' main idea. Okay, and thirdly, for while reading activity, we will have jigsaw reading. Because we have 3 parts in this passage, so I would divide the whole text in the whole class into 3 groups. Okay, group 1 just focus on part 1, paragraph 1 to 3. Okay, and group 2, part 2, and so on and so forth. Okay, and after 10 minutes intensive reading, they are going to tell the other 2 groups what kind of information they have grasped in this 10 minutes. Okay, so they are going to have a pair work. For example, group 2, one child in group 2 is going to find the other child in group 1 or group 3. Okay, so they're going to have pair work. This is for while reading part. Okay, and finally will be post-reading. Post-reading will be the shining point of this lesson. Of course, I put the language point in post-reading. Okay, because for those language points, if we put language points in while reading, that it may disturb the comprehensive ability of the students. So I'm going to put language point in post-reading. And this time, the students are very eager to know what kinds of language points we're going to learn, or some of difficulties that they cannot solve by themselves. But I don't think those points may disturb their reading in the global reading. Okay, so I will discuss some of the words expressions in this part. And finally will be an interview. Okay, this is the shining point of this lesson, and also because I wanted a student to know what kind of globalization on them, especially those we have Shanghai world expert nowadays. So I'm going to guide a student to have an interview based on what kinds of effects does world expert give to you. Okay, and also to the people around you or the neighbors or the friends, that's okay. So they're going to invite 5 students to involve in the interview, okay? And after those 10 minutes of interviewing, they're going to give a report based on the answer they had gained in the interview. Okay. Of course, they're going to make a conclusion by themselves. Last but not least will be the teacher's conclusion. Teacher is going to conclude what the students' performance, okay, what kind of performance they have nowadays, okay, or in this activity, right in this activity. Okay, well, as for the blackboard design, because time is limited, so I'm going to just say something about my blackboard design, okay? Because I use multimedia computer system, so for most of the time, I just rely on PPT, of course, okay? But for some of the very important words and expressions, I still put on the blackboard. I will write them down, okay, to enlighten their attention and also guide them to put their eyes on this because it is the basic reading, okay? And because this is the reading-oriented lesson, so reading is the most skill that they are going to touch today, okay? And for for the last minute, I like to share with you my understanding about integrated English course. Integrated English course is not to train students for basic skills, let's say listening, speaking, reading, and writing. But more importantly, the final purpose is to guide a student to be a whole person, to be an integrated person. That's all. Thank you.
Well, here are 2 questions for you to answer.
Uh-huh.
The first one is, ours is a world of increasing globalization.
Mm-hmm.
What impact does globalization have on national identity and loyalty, according to the author?
Well, in this passage, because in the previous 3 paragraphs, he cites William Brander and also Alice Mandel. These two guys have different kinds of attitude towards globalization. And the first guy, Brander, his attitude is nationality means little to him, while the second guy, Mandel, his attitude is nationality means a lot to him. Okay, so according to the author, while those Danvers men, they are very on a whole, we may say they are not very clear attitude towards globalization, but it all depends. So towards any kinds of, especially for those economic effects in the body of this passage, the author tried to guide us to know some of the advantages and also disadvantages of globalization. So I think the author's attitude towards globalization is it all depends on you. If you take nationalism too strict, then you may not find some of the advantages, real advantages of globalization. That's my understanding. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Well, the second question is related to the title of the text.
Uh-huh.
You know, the title of a text is always understood
Uh-huh.
as the summary of the text.
Yeah, of course.
So what do you think this title tells us?
The title of this text is In Search of Danvers Man.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because Danvers Man, at the very beginning, as I mentioned before, okay, at the very beginning of this text, the author mentioned 2 very, let's say, representatives of diverse men. So because diverse men, they are very sensitive with globalization.
Could you tell us diverse man in narrow sense and in its broad sense?
Diverse men in broad sense means those who are very, very intelligent, okay, and also very who can do something very effective.
Are they relevant to World Economic Forum held each year in Davos?
Of course, because they are both the elite and the World Forum.
What do you mean by of course?
Because the text in, I remember in paragraph 3 or 4 that it tells us.
And I mean, now I ask you, Davos man, is Davos man related to the World Economic Forum?
Well, this is what I'm going to say in narrow sense, okay? Well, in narrow sense, diverse men, well, they are very effective. They are doing things quite effectively in economy. So they are the elite in economy. So that's my understanding.
What does in search of mean here?
Because globalization is quite affect everybody nowadays. So we do need globalization, although it may have some of the, disadvantages.
What does in search of mean here?
That means we are going to find, okay? We are trying to find.
Yes.
Because we are looking up those people.
Good. To investigate.
Yeah, of course.
And what's the meaning of the title as a whole?
Well, that means we are going to find more diverse men, okay? Because, well, to some extent, they represent globalization. And that's what we're going to try today.
Really? You mean they also want to find more diverse men?
That's my understanding.
Thank you.
Thank you.